Hey, welcome back. Did you just open up a new jug of powder and found out that it burns at a completely different speed from the previous jug of the same exact powder? Are you wondering if your powder manufacturer is having quality control problems? Well, if you are, stick with me and I'll explain what's likely going on and what you can do to minimize these kinds of effects when you change from lot to lot of powder and even changes in speed of the powder while you're using it. High-level shooters tend to buy their powder in 8-pound jugs. The reason we do that is to maintain the same lot of powder over a long period of time in our barrels, so we don't have to think about retesting powder or retuning to a new powder. This is key for consistency. On the other hand, we don't think terribly long and hard about how we store that powder while we're using it, because once you break that seal, any hermetic sealing that was there is gone. And that powder is now free to either absorb water from the air around it or emit water into the air. In other words, changing the effective humidity of the powder itself. Now, this can have a deleterious effect on what we perceive as the burn rate. Wet powder will take much more powder to achieve the same velocity as dry powder will. And that effect, over time, is what's causing many of your problems in your lot-to-lot variation. So what can you do about it? You can maintain your powder storage in an environmentally controlled situation, where the humidity doesn't change and the temperature stays relatively stable. That, in and of itself, that one change will make sure that your powder is consistent from jug to jug and from use to use. Maintaining powder burn rate is a matter of maintaining storage conditions. In other words, if you have very dry conditions that you're storing your powder in, it's going to get faster over time after you crack the seal. If you store it in very wet conditions, it's going to slow down over time, and that time is not a very long time. It could be just a matter of a couple of weeks, and you will see a major shift in the burn rate of the powder. Even loaded ammunition is sensitive to this problem. I've showed you on this channel before how keeping loaded ammunition in high humidity versus very dry conditions changed the velocity resulting from the ammunition, even though all the ammunition was loaded together at one time. So what's going on here? The powder, when it absorbs water, is doing two things. One, it's getting heavier per kernel, which means that for any given weight of charge, you're going to get less kernels of powder. In other words, less atoms and molecules to burn in that charge. Now, at the same time, the water that is contained in it is going to vaporize during that burn process and kind of cool the combustion a little bit. And that's going to result in less energy going into the bullet. In other words, we're in a situation where wet powder is going to make less velocity, dry powder is going to make more velocity. And by allowing that humidity level of the powder to shift during the life of a jug of powder, you are literally changing the powder itself from one condition to the next, back and forth maybe from season to season. So how do you stop this process from going on? By maintaining your powder in an environmentally controlled storage condition. Now, there's a couple ways to do it. I like to have a nice environmentally controlled box to keep all my powder in, but the powder that's in use is right here at the load table. That isn't in my environmentally controlled situation. So instead, I use a couple of techniques that help me keep this powder here at the right humidity level so that it matches the stuff that's in storage. You're going to need some kind of a humidity measurement device. This Kestrel drop does the work for me. However, I don't recommend dropping it into the powder. It is an electronic device, and theoretically, under some adverse, weird condition, 1 in a billion thing, could emit a spark, and that spark could ignite the powder, and that could be a very bad day. Instead, I keep this on a lanyard, so I can tie it around the neck of the jug inside of a Ziploc bag, crack the jug, and you can tell the humidity of the powder that way. Now, if I find that the powder is starting to drift from what it should be in its storage condition, which is about 49% humidity in the powder, I have a big tool for you that's really easy to use, and that is a Boveda bag. Now, you can throw these Boveda bags directly in the powder. They don't emit any liquid water, but they do change the humidity inside the jug. Just throw them in the jug, seal the top, and let it sit for a couple of weeks. It will adjust the humidity in there very quickly. And if your powder is relatively close to your desired humidity before you do it, well, it's just going to maintain it for you, even when it starts to get dry in here in the wintertime. Because right now, my powder is right at about 49%, and the room that it's in is at about 41%. It's time to throw a Boveda bag in it. That way, I'm assured that it's not going to change. So guys, if you want your powder to burn at the same rate throughout the entire jug, same rate from jug to jug, and be able to go from one jug to the next without a whole lot of drama and trauma, try this. First, store your powder in an environmentally controlled condition that is approximately what you want it to be when you start using it. If you can't store your powder in an environmentally controlled condition for some reason, throw a Boveda bag in the jug of powder for 2 to 6 weeks before you start using it so that it'll stabilize the humidity level inside. As a side note, a lot of powder is delivered between 55 and 56% humidity. You might want to use a 58% Boveda bag, and I'll put a link in the description below to show you where you can buy those. Either way, either 58s or 49s, I tend to use 49s just because it works better for me, but use whichever one works for you. All right, guys, until next time, shoot straight, maintain the humidity level in your powder, and I'll see you in the next video.